summer breeze, you keep me warm in your love, and then you softly leave. And it took me a need to show how deep is your love, is your love, how deep is your love. I really mean love, 'cause we're living in a world of fools, breaking us down when they all should let us be. We belong to you and me. Song we could ever sing. You're worthy of all the praise we could ever bring, and worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. And Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. And holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes and wonder. Show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Oh, we live for you. And we sing, holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. If you could make your way to your tables and have a seat, we'll get started here in just a moment. And as you make your way to your seats, can we give a round of applause to Keegan Ferrell for the beautiful music tonight? Well, good evening and welcome to a night of celebration. We are celebrating 40 years of a Hope Center tonight. Literally thousands of lives changed and saved over these last 4 decades. My name is Curtis Smith. I'm with Lasting Change and Crosswinds Counseling, and it is my pleasure to be here tonight as your MC. On your way in, if you missed one of the spiritual gift cards at the registration table, they are aligned with class tables at the back of the room. And tonight at the end of the night, we encourage you to go back and investigate those tables and find out more about the class offerings that a Hope Center is bringing to our community. This is gonna be a wonderful night, and to kick us off and to pray for our meal and our time together tonight, it's my pleasure to introduce to you the newest board member of a Hope Center and the young adult pastor at Emmanuel Community Church, Keegan Ferrell.
Hello there, it's an honor to be standing before you, and I'm just so excited to see everyone here, and just to be a part of what the Hope Center is all about is just it's an amazing opportunity. I'm humbled to be part of it, and I'm learning so much, and so I hope tonight's informational, but also that you find a way to get connected, whether it's volunteering, serving, or even just helping financially, and especially just praying for them. So without further ado, I'd like for us to pray together. And before this event started, I was able to pray with the staff, and I'm gonna have us do what we did with the staff. And so if you would, open your hands in a posture of surrender, and we just wanna surrender this night to the Lord tonight. We wanna surrender the ministry, and we wanna surrender everything that is the Hope Center. So if you would, pray with me. Lord, we just thank you for tonight. We just surrender it to you. We surrender all the planning, all the logistics, everything that's gonna happen tonight. We just surrender it to you. We just pray that you continue to watch over Keegan as he performs more, and then also be with Pam, our speaker, that you just give her the words of wisdom, and that you give us ears to hear and hearts to listen. Lord, I just pray over our nation and its leaders. I pray that you would change hearts and change minds and continue to put people in there that will fight for life, fight for what the Hope Center is about. Lord, we just pray for our state and our city that you would continue to lead them as well. And Lord, we just pray over the Hope Center. We are so thankful and blessed for the last 40 years, but Lord, we pray for the next 40 years and what will come of it. The new generation of leaders, the new generation of nurses and staff that's gonna be part of it, and what you're gonna do in the next 40 years. We've seen your faithfulness and your promises come through time and time again in the last 40 years, and it just gets me excited, Lord, for what you're going to do in the next 40 years. We wanna pray over every mother that walks through those doors, that they would find comfort and peace, that they would find you, Lord, and that you would just work through the staff to share the message of hope with these mothers. We just pray for everyone in this room, Lord, that you would just call us to a place of obedience, whether that's giving financially, whether that's praying fervently, or whether that's taking some hours out of our week to serve, whether it's an administrative role or a nursing role or just organizing things. Lord, we just pray that we would be obedient to that calling that you place on us. And Lord, we just pray especially, and thank you especially for what your son did on the cross for each of us, to give us freedom, to give us a hope and a reason. Lord, you knew us when we were knitted in our mother's womb, before that even. And we know that you know every single baby that's gonna be part of a Hope Center for generations to come. So we just pray over them right now, Lord. We just thank you for tonight. We pray over the meal, that it be nourishment to our bodies and our bodies to your service. Amen. We're gonna get to hear from my little brother again. And many of you may know this song that we're about to sing. And so I encourage you to join in worship, because what an awesome opportunity we have to just worship the Lord together here over the Hope Center, and also just what he's doing with this city. So let's join.
wanna see you. I wanna see you. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart, 'cause I wanna see you. I wanna see you. See you high and lifted up, shining in the light of your glory. Pour out your power and love as we cry, holy, holy, holy. Holy, holy, holy. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart, 'cause I wanna see you. Oh, I wanna see you. Open the eyes of my heart. Open the eyes of my heart, 'cause I wanna see you. Oh, I wanna see you. To see you high and lifted up, shining in the light of your glory. Pour out your power and love as we cry, holy, holy, holy. 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 I wanna see you. Holy, holy, holy. Holy, holy, holy. Holy, holy, holy. I wanna see you. To see you high and lifted up, shining in the light of your glory. Pour out your power and love as we cry, holy, holy, holy. See you high and lifted up, shining in the light of your glory. Pour out your power and love as we cry, holy, holy, holy. Holy, holy, holy. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart, 'cause I wanna see you. Oh, I wanna see you.
Can we thank Keegan Ferrell one more time? At this time, the Coliseum staff is going to serve dinner, and I see most of you already partaking in your salad. Please continue to eat as we continue our program. And to kick us off tonight, there is no more appropriate setting for a baby to scream and interrupt. Like, that is perfect. I see the parents quickly trying to cover up the mouth. Don't do that. Let's hear that baby scream. As we start our program tonight, it is my pleasure to introduce to you the board president of A Hope Center, Rebecca Pfeffer.
Good evening. Thank you, everyone. And it is true. Thank you, Curtis, for introducing me. I am a Hope Board's president. However, I serve with 9 other wonderful board members. So at this time, I would like for you guys to stand so everyone can see who you are. These individuals give freely of their time, talent, and treasure. They truly are dedicated to the mission of a Hope Center and advocating for the unborn children. I would like to also have a huge thank you for their spouses and their families that allowed them to support a Hope Center as a board member. And even many of these family members volunteer and are interns at a Hope Center. So thank you so much. On behalf of a Hope Center board, I would like to welcome you to the 40th year anniversary celebration. Doesn't the room look absolutely wonderful? What a great job the team did. We would like to express appreciation and gratitude to all of this evening's sponsors. First of all, we would like to thank our gold sponsors, Brotherhood Mutual, Parish Leasing, and Parish Dedicated. So thank you so much to them. We would also like to thank Ambassador Enterprises, Columbia City Iron and Metal, All Pro Towing, DuPont Veterinary Clinic, Blackburn and Romey, Fritcha Construction, Stone Street Quarries, Red Fly Design Build, and Angola Investments. We are so grateful to all of our sponsors and their generosity. A Hope Center couldn't do what they do without all of the volunteers, so I would appreciate it if the volunteers would stand up. A huge thank you to all of the volunteers who donate their time and talent to make a Hope Center truly a wonderful place for the clients and the staff. We really appreciate all you do. I love the fact that they spend countless hours sorting through all those diapers. There are just, if you've been in there are like thousands of diapers, and they organize them, keep them straight, but they also show lots of love to the staff members and to the clients when they come in. A Hope Center wouldn't be a Hope Center if they didn't have a staff, so at this time I would like the Hope Center staff to stand up. A Hope Center staff, you are truly an amazing group of people. I've been able over the last couple of years to spend some time with them. They all have their individual areas of expertise and giftedness that God has bestowed on them, and they bring all of this every day to a Hope Center when they come. Thank you for the love and dedication you have for the client and how you share the love of Jesus and come along all of those families and make sure they don't feel alone. Thank you so much. And now it's my honor and pleasure to introduce Michelle Schenefeld, the Executive Director. I met Michelle a little over 2 years ago. I was sitting in then Board President Jeremy Guyad's office. Michelle had just become the interim director. I think it was like 36 hours before this. She thought she was going to have a 2-year training period to take over as the director, but it was fast. I knew after talking with her just a brief time that she had a big job, but she was up to that job. And in retrospect, if I think back, a Bible verse that comes to my mind is Proverbs 31:25. Strength and honor are her clothing, and she is confident about the future. And she was very confident about the future of a Hope Center. She could have that confidence because she really trusted in the Lord and leaned on Him to give her direction and guidance. It is my pleasure to have worked with Michelle and to have learned and shared countless stories of how God really has come alongside her at just the right moment. One of my favorite stories that I would like to share about Michelle is right after she became the interim director, she was at South Calhoun office. And it was right during the time when the news had leaked about Roe v. Wade, and pregnancy centers were having lots of protests, and there were lots of threats made to the pregnancy centers. And she looked outside, and there were lines of people that were standing on the sidewalk, more people than she had ever seen stand there. And she said to herself, what are we gonna do? What should I do? But God just gave her wisdom and insight, and she thought, I'm gonna just walk out there and I'm gonna say, I'm new here, Director, are you guys here for a tour? So she walked out, and she asked them, are you here for a tour? And they said, no, there's a fire drill, and they told us to come over here and stand. But I thought that was a perfect example of how God was giving her wisdom and insight of He would be with her no matter what she would face or was tackling. As we've gotten to know each other, I have so much respect for her. She is kind and compassionate and truly bears the gifts of the Spirit. She is a confident woman of God who is motivated by the love of Christ. She is a courageous servant leader. She's a wonderful daughter, wife, and mother, a self-sacrificing friend to many, and a blessing to all of those who come across her path. So please help me welcome Michelle to the stage for a few words. We love and appreciate you so much.
Wow, she is our angel, one of our two angels that was given to us during that transition. Thanks to Ambassador and Jeremy Gayed, and they were there with us for 6 weeks starting out, and I can't be thankful enough for that. And I also can't be thankful enough for the people who stood by my side. I want to make sure that all the things that Leanne Fritcha, the Director of Medical Services, does behind the scenes is noted. And Pamela Anderson, our Director of Operations, if you guys could just stand up. They have done some amazing things over the last couple of years, and I want to make sure everyone knows that it's not just me. Anyway, I welcome you guys all to our 40th anniversary, and I am so excited about this. Together we have worked as servants for the Lord for 40 years to support young women during pregnancy. And as you've seen from the videos earlier, there's reminiscent pictures of things that have gone on, and our staff and volunteers have made a lot of memories during that time of serving. I'm sure it warms the hearts of those of you who've been involved a long time, maybe even since the beginning when it started at Holy Cross Lutheran School, or maybe you remember it as a crisis pregnancy center on Lake Avenue. Maybe your memories start in the middle years like mine do. Or maybe you're newer to being a partner to the ministry and you're inspired and eager to know how God can use you and what type of opportunities there might be for you to serve. Many things have changed over 40 years, but there are some things that remain the same. And one thing that's never going to change is that a Hope Center has been and will always be unapologetically Christian. We share the love of Jesus, and if we have permission from the client, we also share the message of salvation, and we plant seeds. Another thing that has not changed is that a Hope Center has always strived to offer support services for young women in our community, helping them to feel so supported that abortion does not feel like their only option. Those services have changed over time to fit the current needs of the client, etc. Intervention, education, healing, grief, and recently bringing back some prevention education needs. We are strategically trying to eliminate any barriers that women may have to receive our services. A Hope Center's, a client's cell phone serves as their go-to for information that they do not already know. So, we have paid search through a marketing service specializing in pregnancy resource centers. This search engine optimization is a marketing tool necessary to make sure that we are at the top of the list when such words like unplanned pregnancy, ultrasound, or abortion are searched. We have always had qualified people as part of our system to answer calls, after hours, but in addition, recently, we've added a 24/7 nurse text line, enabling us to reach the current generation better and faster. Because if they don't reach us immediately, they will continue scrolling and they will reach somebody else. And notice, everything that I have just listed are all things that incur costs before we have even reached the client. We have implemented telehealth to build a connection once the client has found us before they even come through our doors. Why, you may say? Because they can find another telehealth provider to prescribe the abortion pill and have it sent to their home without educating them on all of their options, the support available at a Hope Center, or the resources within the community. There would not be over 5,000 abortion pill reversals nationally if these women had the facts and just waited a couple of days, because the reversal has to be taken within 3 days. Each young woman deserves education on all her options and the available support before making a life-altering choice out of fear. 40 years ago, it was not easy. It was not that easy 40 years ago to act on impulse. In fact, in my 17 years experience, it's never been harder for us to reach her first. But do not be discouraged, because in the last couple of years, we have seen God's hand go before us with all of our clients, with our finances, with our staff, and prayers just answered immediately. And in addition to that, we saw a 15.74% increase in clients last year. We have record numbers of clients wanting to hear about the gospel, and they seem to be drawn to the Lord. Our All Things New Bible study has clients who are interested in learning and growing in the Bible. We had a time where there was an anonymous woman who even dropped off $2,000 at the window, $2,000 cash anonymously. So if you're out there, we're saying thank you. But nobody knew this, but me and Leanne, that we were $2,000 short of our goal for the golf outing, our first golf outing. Nobody knew that, just us two. We hadn't told anyone yet, and then that came into the door. I was also feeling overwhelmed, and I asked for the staff to pray for me. And before we left the room for praying, in walks Judy Hapke, the former director of a Hope Center for 22 years, who trained me. I was in her last training class before she retired, when I was a volunteer. She brought with her a letter about being an overwhelmed executive director, and with that came many Bible verses about being overwhelmed, and we hadn't even left the room yet. We prayed for staff, for knowledge, for direction, for answers, to buy, to sell, to do all these things, to do strategic things to help, and we've gotten answers. Then we have an applicant apply for a reception advocate position with a secondary education degree and 3 years of classroom experience. Leanne and I both knew that we were going to need to hire an education coordinator at some point, But God went before us in that situation even before we prayed for it. There's a good reason this new initiative that we are doing with the prevention education is so imperative. Prevention serves as one aspect, but also awareness of our services to the ones who need it most. Whether it's for them or a friend, they will know where to get non-judgmental, trusted answers first. Now, before we move on to this beautiful testimony, a testimony that we wanted to have from years ago, because we're celebrating 40 years and we wanted a testimony that was long time ago with a seasoned advocate, and she was an answer to prayer as well. She came up to us right after we were looking for that, and there she was. Her name is Jamie, and her advocate is Janet, who's now been here for 38 years. Before you watch that beautiful testimony, there's a 1-minute video that's going to play that's about the abortion pill. And most of you probably don't know about it or understand the ramifications of it and how it's and why it's so important. We have to reach them first and reach them now. And then when you watch this beautiful testimony, be thinking about what might be different now in that story if her options were different at that time. I thank you all for your partnership. Thank you, and God bless you.
It takes just 3 minutes to get the results of her pregnancy test. At that moment, she knows her life will never be the same. In just 5 minutes, she can order the abortion pill online, and they arrive in 4 days or less. She's told it's like taking a Tylenol. The abortion pill now accounts for more than half of all abortions. But there is another way. How do we lead her to life? We must reach her first and welcome her in. Be the first one she thinks of when the test is positive. The first one she sees online when she looks for a solution. When you partner with us, you help her. Your gift helps us reach her first. Your gift helps us offer the services and support she needs. Help us help her to choose life.
In 2012, I took ownership of my faith and committed my life to the Lord. I want to say thank you to a Hope Center for planting spiritual seeds that I know that helped lead me in that direction, along with multiple other avenues. In 2007, shortly after graduating high school, I found myself in the midst of an unexpected pregnancy. When I first arrived at a Hope Center, I first met with Janet, and I was worried because we actually recognized each other from outside of a Hope Center, but she was quick to reassure me that the visit would be confidential and really made me feel very comfortable. That day, she confirmed that I was pregnant when she delivered my positive pregnancy test results, and in that moment I felt a lot of devastation. I was not ready to be a mom. I had plans to go to college and I was not married. The best way to describe it is I really went into a state of panic. And around that time, I actually had somebody close to me encourage me towards abortion. I would have considered myself pro-life leading up to that point, but when I was experiencing these feelings of fear and shame, it really led me to consider every option that I had available to me. So I remember I actually made a phone call to an abortion clinic, and that's hard to share, but during that call I felt convicted that it was not the right thing to do, and I praise God today because I did not make an appointment, but I chose to keep my baby. That's an important piece of my story I really want to share with other young women that might find themselves in similar circumstances, because I want you to know that even if you feel like abortion is your only option, or if you're feeling pressured in that direction, or even if you already have an appointment set up, it is okay to walk into a Hope Center and they will welcome you with no judgment.
Well, my name is Janet, and I was privileged to be here.
That many years ago, 16 years ago.
And we always say at a Hope Center that God pairs up who he wants to be with the clients. And so I don't look at it as an accident. I look at it as a great privilege that God gave me to share with you during your pregnancy, to try to be a support to you, to help you, to make you feel comfortable. And that's what we do here. Our goal is to help those who come to us with, as you said in your testimony, no judgment. We're just here to help.
They're going to provide support that you need. They met me right where I was at, and they allow you to realize that you can do this and you can choose life for your baby. I'm very thankful that the Hope Center was able to support me throughout my entire pregnancy. I met with Janet regularly as she mentored me and offered me spiritual guidance, and I was able to utilize their parenting classes where I learned and I grew so much in my knowledge, but I also earned points that I used in their baby store where I was able to receive essentials I needed, like diapers. I remember getting formula and even a high chair. Moreover, my family relationships were really tough at the beginning of my pregnancy. My mom and I had a very strained relationship, and a Hope Center, they are advocates for family relationships. And Jana even met with my mom and I together, helping us to work through some struggles that we had, and we were able to walk into this new chapter together.
I've been here a long time, and the reason that I keep coming back is because of people like Jamie that God brings into our lives and gives us an opportunity to speak truth into them, the truth about abortion, the truth about Jesus, just the truth about lifestyle. And when he gives us that opportunity, he gets all the glory for what is accomplished here at Hope Center. We don't take credit for it. We're just glad to be here and just glad to share with those who come through our doors.
I have now been married for 8 years. We have another son together who's 5, and Jadon will be 16. He'll turn 16 on April 15th, the day before this banquet will take place. We just really can't imagine our lives without him. And I even tell him that God used him for just a greater purpose and really helped draw me near to the Lord when I look back at that time. I would just like to say a big thanks to Janet and all the volunteers at a Hope Center, just for your commitment for these 40 years to the community, and also just bringing hope to families like myself.
Jamie and Janet are here tonight. Ladies, will you please stand so we can recognize you? There they are at the back center. Will you thank them? Well, it's now my pleasure to introduce to you the keynote speaker tonight. Pam Stenzel has spent her entire adult life working with women experiencing crisis pregnancies, advocating for life, and helping students choose to save sex for marriage. Pam's personal story, being conceived in rape and yet adopted and loved, gave her passion to speak on the value of every human life, as well as walk alongside women in crisis and bring them help and hope. Pam's life mission is to always point to the value of every single person created in God's image with a plan and a purpose. Every person deserves the dignity and respect bestowed upon them by their Creator first. Every life has value because we are all children of God. After graduating from Liberty University with a degree in psychology, Pam began working with the pregnancy help centers in the Minneapolis area, eventually becoming director of Alpha Women's Center in Prior Lake, Minnesota. She began speaking to teens in her own community and eventually was asked to produce a video for use in churches. In 1996, along with Youth for Christ, Pam's Talk to Teens, Sex Has a Price Tag, was released on VHS. Do you remember VHS? I think most of you do. The video was distributed worldwide and has been translated into 11 different languages. Pam began speaking on sexual integrity to students, parents, and educators full-time, and up until the pandemic was speaking live to approximately 300,000 people per year around the world. Currently, she serves as the Client Services Director for Community Pregnancy Clinics, operating 5 clinics and 2 mobile clinics across Southwest and Central Florida. Pam also serves on the board of Safe Haven Baby Boxes and is the director of the National Safe Haven Crisis Hotline. She also serves on the boards of Infinite Worth, Personhood Alliance, and Personhood Florida. Pam has produced curriculum on sexual integrity for Bright Course, as well as training for pregnancy help centers on the same platform under Bright Training. Ladies and gentlemen, will you please welcome our keynote speaker, Pam Stenzel.
Wow, that was a lot. Are you tired yet? And here's the other thing, you're all still eating, please feel free, because I'm loud, and it doesn't matter, but you probably, I'll promise to save like genital warts for later, when you're not in the middle of eating your dinner. I don't know, you have the sex speakers speak while everybody's eating dinner, it's a little rough, but you just keep eating, this is good. If you listen to the bio, you saw that I was born and raised in the great state of Michigan in a little town called Grand Rapids. And my family is still there, many of my family. My mom, my amazing adoptive mom, she's like the greatest ever. I love her to death. She has worked in and volunteered for and been on the board for Alpha Women's Center of Grand Rapids, Michigan for since I was in high school, a very long time. And at 80 years old, 2 years ago this month, she finally retired. But you can't keep my mom, no matter how old she is, out of the pregnancy center. That's where she loved. And for me to have grown up and watched my mom do that work was pretty amazing. So I left Grand Rapids. When I graduated high school, I went to Moody Bible Institute in Chicago, and which is where I met my husband. And I always tease now, in my next life when I'm dating in college, excuse me, where are you from? Minnesota? Moving right along. I married a Minnesota farm boy, ended up 29 years in the state of Minnesota, had 3 children. My children are all grown. And when my youngest went off to university, he came up to us, he says, Mom, I'm going to Texas. He went to UT Austin. He goes, I'm going to Texas and I'm not coming back to Minnesota. I said, good, because your dad and I are moving to Florida. I have had enough of Siberia. I can't do this anymore. And so I now live in Tampa, Florida. But perhaps, and I've been 10 years down in Florida, but somebody maybe should have warned me that moving to Florida in the middle of menopause was not the best idea. And maybe would have liked to have waited a few years on that one. But anyway, I've been to Cleveland, and I flew into Cleveland to come here on Sunday because I had some work here, and then I'm heading in that direction. I'm doing another banquet in the Cleveland area on Thursday night, but I've been to Cleveland this was 5 times since January of this year, like early January, late December. And you know, when Cleveland is on your flight schedule anytime between December and now, you're like, oh, please. Can I get there and then can I leave? I don't know if I'll ever get out of here. I saw snow once on March the 8th. This entire time I've been in and out of Cleveland since January. I don't know, you all have had the same. Like in Minnesota, my kids are all like, it's not even snowing. We don't know what's going on. It's called global warming. Embrace it. It's a good thing. So I have one daughter, 2 boys. My sons are still single because I've scared the living life out of them so badly that I don't know if they'll ever figure the marriage thing out. I'm rethinking that now. But my oldest and my only daughter is married. I have an amazing son-in-law. If you can survive dating the sex lady's daughter, you're doing really well. It's a good man. And they have 2 beautiful daughters, so I'm the grandma of little Aubrey, who's 9, and little Briley, who's 4. And I got to tell you, there is nothing better than grandma. That is the greatest thing on earth. I just love it. It's awesome. So that's my family. I have had the privilege of traveling all around the world, speaking to teens about sexual integrity, but it's not where I started. I started in a pregnancy center down in south of Minneapolis in Prior Lake. And I would have girls coming into my clinic every day saying, Pam, I didn't know. If someone would have told me that this is what was going to happen, I would have made a different choice. No one told me. I began to ask these girls in my clinics, what could we have said? What could someone have said to you before you made your choice that might have helped you to have made a better choice? And after 9 years, I realized that we had a lot of students out there making decisions about sex, having absolutely no idea what the consequence of that choice would be. I began to complain about what we weren't talking to our kids about. I would go to youth pastors back in the day, and you heard the VHS thing, so some of you are tracking. This was a while ago. In the late 80s, I would go to youth pastors, and I would say, I would much rather see your kids in church on Wednesday night than in my clinic on Thursday morning. And back in the day, here were the youth pastors. Not our kids, no, Pam. Our kids that come to youth group. I'm like, here's the intake at my pregnancy clinic. When was the first day of your last period? And where do you go to church? It's in my intake, sweetheart. And sadly, we went through some years, quite a few years, through the True Love Waits program and through the 2000s that we were speaking in churches. All the churches were handling and talking about it. And we even got money from George W. Bush to speak to students on abstinence education during his administration. And so I was busy. I was all over the country speaking in public schools, private schools, Catholic, Lutheran schools all over the country. We were terribly busy. And then when Obama became president, he appointed to the Department of Health and Human Services a woman by the name of Kathleen Sebelius, former governor of Kansas. And I got a call from Kathleen Sebelius' office, not her originally. And she said, Pam, all of these grantees, all of these people who had been receiving money from the federal government to the states to teach abstinence education in our public schools, they all have to show up in D.C. for a conference, and we're bringing them all together, and we were wondering if you would come and speak to them in D.C. Now, I thought somebody was going to lose their job real quickly because I'm like, do they know who they just asked? Come and speak. I think you know who I am. And so I show up, I'll be there. I showed up the night before I had to speak, so they had already, were already meeting before me, and I walked into the hotel, and my colleagues were there. I know a lot of them, and they came up to me and they said, Pam, you're not going to believe what happened. Kathleen Sebelius got up in front of all of them that day and said, we don't care what you teach your children at home or in your churches, but if you're going to take government funding to teach sex education in the schools, you will teach abortion, birth control, or condoms, or you will lose your funding. And she was telling them all, like, lose your funding immediately, like not in a few years when the funding grant you got read. It will be as of now done. And then she said, abstinence doesn't work. And I looked at my colleagues, I said, did those words come out of that woman's mouth? She literally said that out loud. Because I have the mic tomorrow morning. I got up the next morning and we had about 300 educators and grantees, and then Kathleen Sebelius was sitting like right here with all her HHS cronies right in the front. And I said, last night I heard that somebody told you that abstinence doesn't work. And I don't know what medical information you have that I am not aware of. But last I checked, abstinence works 99.9999999% of the time, and the one time it didn't work, we have Christmas. Abstinence doesn't work. Stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. This is insane. And I think what the problem has been is that somehow we believe that we were responsible for the decisions that other people make. I am not the sex police. It is not my job to teach teenagers not to have sex, to keep them from having sex. My job is to tell them the truth. What they do with the information they're given is 100% theirs, not mine. I tell kids every day, I didn't come to your school to decide for you what you're going to do about sex. I'm not going on your dates with you. I don't have time. Y'all can do whatever you want. My only goal is that no one would be able to leave this room and ever again have to say to a physician, to a counselor, to your future husband or wife, nobody told me. I didn't know. Today you're going to be told. What you choose to do when you walk out of here is 100% yours. God created sex, but he created it with a boundary. When sex happens within the boundary for which it was created, it is awesome. When it happens outside of that boundary, it's horribly destructive. What is the boundary, the context for which God created sex? Okay, Fort Wayne, I was getting worried just for a minute. 3 of you got that right. Marriage is the right answer. Some of you didn't know that. Most of your kids, whether they go to church or not, don't believe that. You know how many kids we have in our clinics and in the Hope Center come in, they go to church, go to youth group, and they go, but we loved each other. So, God did not create sex for love. That is not the boundary. God created sex for one context and one only, permanent, lifetime commitment, marriage, not love. Now, sometimes in marriage there's love. That's helpful. On occasion, there's not, right? I didn't say to my husband, I'll stay married to you if you treat me the way I expect to be treated. You put your socks where they belong. You don't gain 500 pounds in the next 10 years. And he didn't say that to me, thank God. What I said is I'm committed to you for the rest of my life, no matter what. That is a safe context for sex. And I love God's law because it's easy. It's not complicated. It doesn't take a 4.0. Either you're married or you're not. And you can't be kind of married or almost married any more than you can be kind of pregnant. It is an A or B situation. And the other reason I love God's law is because this is true for every single one of us in this room. This isn't a teenage thing, you know? It's like, oh, talk to those teenagers, those college students. This is the same boundary we all have to abide by, correct? Here it is. If you are not married, don't do it. If you are married, go for it with the person you're married to. Have to put that in there. Some of our politicians get confused. You're not on a date going, I don't know, does he love me? He said he's cute. We're going to get married next summer. He went to Jared's. What should I do? Are you married? No, then don't. I tell teenagers and college students every day, if you forget everything I tell you and you can only remember one thing, this is what I want you to hear. If you have sex outside of marriage, if you have sex outside of one permanent monogamous, and monogamy does not mean one at a time, that is one partner who has only been with you. You have sex outside of that context and you'll pay. There's a cost. No one has ever had more than one partner and not paid. And the question our kids have to ask is, what is the cost and is it worth paying? In our pregnancy centers every day, we have an opportunity to speak truth into the lives of young people. I'm going to tell you right now, our young people have been lied to for decades. And it's still going on and it's devastating. What do you think is the biggest fear of young people, high school, college students who are sexually active, who are having sex? What's their biggest fear? Pregnancy is still, in 2024, the biggest fear of unmarried young people, high school, college. Pregnancy is not a disease. It's survivable. You can live through it. I've lived through it 3 times now. A few extra pounds here and there. It hasn't killed me yet. We have girls coming into our Hope Center, scared to death, waiting for the results of a pregnancy test. I walk in, look at this little girl and say, your test is negative, sweetheart. You're not pregnant. She gets this look of relief over her face like I am off the hook, not pregnant. Thank you very much. Let me out of your clinic. Wait a minute. Have you been tested for syphilis, gonorrhea, herpes, chlamydia, trichomonas, vulvodynia, arthritis, hepatitis B, hepatitis C, HPV, HIV? Have you been tested? Me, I live in Indiana. I don't live in Ohio. See? You mean I would need to be tested for that. This little girl is in our clinic thinking she could be pregnant, and she doesn't think she could have an STD. Astounding. Our kids have a 5 times greater risk of contracting an STD than they ever have of being pregnant. Pregnant teen girls are carrying, on average, 2.3 sexually transmitted infections. Not 1, not 2, most of them 3 or more. But they were not worried about getting an STD, were they? No, they want to get pregnant. Every high school I speak in anywhere in this country, and I'm not exaggerating, it doesn't matter if it's public, Lutheran, Catholic, makes no difference. Every high school, I'll have a girl write me, email me, or come right up to me and say this. Well, my mom found out I was having sex, and so she put me on the pill, or Depo, or an IUD. What's that protecting that girl from? What does hormonal birth control protect you from? Pregnancy, most of the time. That drug, hormone, IUD shot that this girl is taking has just made her 10 times more likely to contract an STD than if she were not taking those drugs. This little girl could end up sterile or dead. Thanks, Mom. Glad you cared. Pregnancy, the worst thing that could happen to our kids if they had sex? Never, absolutely never. Far worse things than that. The CDC finally released its stats for 2022. It takes forever. Ever since COVID now, they take like almost 3 years to release stats, or for sure 2 years. In 2022, we have the highest STD infection rate we have ever had in this country since we've been following it. We had 28 million new infections with STDs in this country, and a full 60% of that number are people between the ages of 15 and 24. If you would have graduated high school in 1965, who wants to admit you can remember that year? 1 in 32 of your classmates would have been infected with a sexually transmitted disease. If you would have graduated with me in the dark ages of 1983, getting closer for some of you? 1 in 18 of our classmates was infected. It had virtually doubled. Today, it is 1 in 3. Parents, grandparents, if you think the kids today are making the same choices you were making, you were sadly mistaken. In the 1950s, we had 5 sexually transmitted infections we knew about and were treating. You could count them on one hand. I tell kids all the time, go find a grandparent. Go find somebody who grew up in the 50s or 60s. Ask them. This will be a great dinner table conversation next time you're at Grandma's. Y'all try this. Mother's Day. Grandma, were there STDs when you were a kid? Did people have those? Talk about it at school, at church? Did you have crazy speakers come to your youth group and yell about syphilis in 1962? No. Maybe a few people back then had an STD. They got a shot of penicillin, moved on. Welcome to 2024. We now have over 30 sexually transmitted infections, 30% of them absolutely incurable. That means you get one of these STDs and you've got it for life, which is a lovely thing, guys, when you're getting ready to get married, young men. Found this girl you love? I mean, this is it. She's the one you want to marry, all those other girls that was just messing around. This is the real thing. Pull out that diamond, look her in the eyes. If you're cool, guys, you get on your knees. You say, marry me. By the way, I've got genital warts. You'll get it too, and we'll both be treated for the rest of our lives. In fact, you'll probably end up with a radical hysterectomy, cervical cancer, and possibly death. But marry me. Well, I'm excited now. Thanks for sharing. You want to tell your wife? Lovely. These are very serious diseases with serious consequences. And what our kids don't understand is the number one thing that brings them at risk for an STD infection, whether it's viral or bacterial, or whether we can cure it or we can't, is the number of partners they're having. That's the number I have to know. And in our clinics, especially at my clinic at the University of Florida, when we do an intake on a young girl coming in, and we begin to explain this, here's the other thing that our kids don't they look at you like, what are you talking about? No one ever told me this. I didn't understand this. This is insane. We have epidemic levels of STD, and no one is telling the very people that need to hear this. Here's the other thing. Of the 30 major STDs we're dealing with today, 26 of them primarily damage women. The other 4 damage both. Fair? I wish I could make stuff up for guys. You know, things are going to turn green, fall off. Seriously. If I could make it up, I would. That would be lying and untruthful. Our women, our girls, will always pay a higher price. And the reality is it's primarily infertility. Infertility among women has risen over 500% in 2 decades. We have massive infertility problems. One of the biggest reasons for it is chlamydia, which is a bacteria which is easily tested for and easily cured. The problem is it's a silent infection, and women have chlamydia. They don't know they have it. And one of the reasons that we're testing for chlamydia in our clinics and in the Hope Center is because absolutely no woman should ever, on any occasion, undergo an abortion, chemical or surgical, without knowing that she is STD free, that she does not have an active infection. Because if she has either chemical or surgical abortion with an active STD infection, we're going to shove that infection up to her tubes. She could bleed out. She could have sepsis and hemorrhaging, and this will do major damage to her future fertility. Think the abortion clinic's telling them that? You think Planned Parenthood cares whether or not this girl can ever have children in the future? Absolutely not. Have your daughters been told this? Do they fully understand that even one bout with chlamydia, whether it's cured or not, could mean they will never be able to be mothers biologically? They will never be able to have their own children? They're not being told. And you know what's so crazy? I've been doing this for a lot of years and talking about these issues. And it used to be that the most controversial thing that I would say out loud back in the Kathleen Sebelius days, back in the Obama administration, was that abstinence or sexual risk avoidance is the only way to avoid infection and unplanned pregnancy. The CDC says it on their website, but it's very controversial to Kathleen Sebelius. That was the most controversial thing that I would ever say. Do you know what the most controversial thing I'll say out loud and why I haven't been in a public school in probably 3 years? You know what the most controversial thing I say out loud is in 2024? That men and women are different. Used to be a joke with high school students in my world, right? I'd look at the kids and go, in case you missed this in 6th grade human reproduction and anatomy, we're different. Boys and girls' bodies are not the same. And the kids would all laugh like, oh, she's so stupid. We knew that. And now today it's this. I was at a Christian conference, I will not name it, especially in Fort Wayne, Indiana. Very large youth conference in Houston. We had about 20, 30,000 students. I would speak to about 2,000, 3,000 at a time, 2 times a day. I was hanging out in the convention center and a young woman came up to me, one of the teenager high school students. She said, Pam, all those STDs you were talking about, my boyfriend wants to know what of those STDs he needs to be worried about. I said, all of them. Was he sleeping? All of them. Okay, you both have to worry about all of these STDs. The difference is, sweetheart, the consequences to you are going to be far greater than the consequence for your boyfriend. She still looked confused. I couldn't understand why. And finally, she said this. She goes, well, my boyfriend is transitioning. I stopped. So your boyfriend is a biological female. Is that what you're telling me? She said, yes. I said, your boyfriend needs a pap smear. In my life, never thought those words would have to come out of my mouth. How far we have fallen. And the tragedy is that what we have is a generation who has rejected being created in the image of God. And they have set themselves up as God. And if you spend any time with Romans 1, you will know how that story ends. When my son, who's now in his 30s, was 5 years old, he believed, he was convinced, he actually knew that he was in fact a teenage mutant ninja turtle. He would put on the suit and the eye thing, and then he took a fire poker to my couch. I was going to kill him. Image of God, regardless. I did not, however, have a shell surgically attached to his body when he was 5. And eventually he grew up and learned that he was not, in fact, a teenage mutant ninja turtle. What's going on, people? The confusion of our kids and of this generation is devastating. And we need to be bold enough to speak the truth and to not apologize. And to let them know that they were created in the image of God, male and female, and that it's beautiful, and that God's design for marriage is beautiful, that a man would leave his family and a woman would leave her home, and that they would covenant together to love each other freely, totally, faithfully, forsaking all others, and in this amazing union of two becoming one flesh, fruitfully bring forth new life. That's God's plan. That's God's design, and it's beautiful, and the enemy of your soul has sold you a lie. And the enemy is lying to a generation, and I am very afraid, and I'm not talking just about the public schools. Now I'm talking about our faith-based schools, our churches, our youth groups, where we're afraid to speak the truth. The enemy's lying to our kids. We need to speak the truth. I'm so grateful for places like Hope Center that are determined, that say we are faith-based, we are not going to apologize, and we're going to speak the truth in love. That's being a light in a very dark generation, and I'm so grateful for them. Many of the women that come into Hope Center and into my clinics, their pregnancy test is not negative, it's positive, and she's trying to figure out what she's going to do with the passage of the Dobbs decision recently. The other side has gone full force into scaring women, talking to them about making very quick decisions. We're dealing with that in Florida right now. And it's all done in fear. And I always remind my nurses staff too that these women are being preyed upon, they're being lied to, and they're being given this fear. If you don't have an abortion, you don't do it right now, you might not be able to do that, and get these pills, have them ahead of time, set all of the fear-mongering that's going on. And the reality is no good decision is made out of fear. Scripture says that perfect love casts out fear. And so our nurses, our staff, our volunteers have to be prayed up, and they have to show up in that clinic, and whether they're answering the phone or they're answering a text or they're face-to-face with that woman, there needs to be so much love pouring out of her that the fear is gone. And so as you pray for the Hope Center, will you pray that? Will you pray that our staff who are on the front lines, those nurses, those volunteers who are on the front line with women who are afraid and are being told a lie, that they would be able to speak truth in love, whether it's the phone, whether it's a text, whether it's chatting back and forth or whether they're in front of them. Because I firmly believe that when we love women and we tell them the truth and we shine the light, ultrasound changed everything. When she sees that ultrasound and sees that little baby on that screen and hears that heartbeat, these things change lives. And we can bring hope, which I love the name. It's hope. We're bringing hope to despair, and we're bringing perfect love to cast out fear. When a woman finds herself in an unplanned pregnancy, she doesn't have any good decisions at all. We've had to look at young women and say, sweetheart, all of your choices at this point are bad, terrible, and even worse. Your good choice was before you had sex. Now all of your choices are going to carry consequences. They all carry pain. Abortion is painful. I've counseled hundreds of women, 5, 10, 15, 20 years after an abortion, still hurting, still struggling. They tell them, oh, it's just a little thing, you'll forget it, and they never do, and the pain they carry. The abortion pill is devastating. Chemical abortion, this is not the morning after pill, which is also terrible and horrible, but that's to be taken within 24 to 72 hours after having sex. The abortion pill, chemical abortion, is very different. It is a regimen of 2 very powerful drugs given between the 6th week and the 10th week. And you have in Florida, and I think in Indiana too, you're required to see a physician, or you used to be required to see a physician before you could get your hands on these drugs until they started mail ordering them across the country. But you need to be in front of a physician. You need to have an ultrasound, desperately important, because you can't take these dangerous drugs if you're beyond 10 to 11 weeks. It's very, very dangerous. And when you ask a woman what was the first day of her last period, any of you have been around young women for what? It was February, March, maybe it was January. They have no clue. They can be off on their dates by weeks, if not months, and you're going to give them a dangerous drug based on you telling me when was the first day of your last period and answering a question over telehealth? Come on. She should have a physician. We need an ultrasound for a few reasons. One, to make sure the pregnancy is viable. If there is no heartbeat and this baby is not alive, you don't have to ingest horrible drugs to cause the baby to come out. You are miscarrying. Do you think the abortion clinic, when they do an ultrasound and see no fetal heartbeat and realize this baby is probably not going to make it, and with time, probably she's going to naturally miscarry, do you think that they're going to say, oh, we don't really need to do the abortion because there's no heartbeat? Drop their $600? No, they're not going to tell her anything. They're not going to show her the ultrasound. She's not going to see anything. Unbelievable. You need to know baby's viable. You need to know that baby is where baby is supposed to be, in the uterus and not in the fallopian tube. If it's ectopic, it not only will the baby never make it, but it could kill her. And the abortion drug, chemical abortion, will do nothing to that ectopic pregnancy. And when the symptoms or what you're going to experience taking that second drug is immense pain and heavy bleeding, and that's the exact symptoms of a burst ectopic that could kill you, do you think a girl who took the abortion drug who's now having heavy pain and massive bleeding is going to go to the ER because she's figuring, hey, it could be ectopic? No, she's going to bleed out right there. Unbelievable danger. We need to know baby's in the uterus where baby's supposed to be, and we need to know exactly how far along she is. We need to know the gestational age of that baby. For that reason, she should have an ultrasound. COVID happened and the FDA the abortion industry said, we can't see girls and give them an ultrasound because it's COVID. COVID. So what we're going to do is we're going to have drive-up abortions, and she's going to come up to the Planned Parenthood, and the Planned Parenthood employees are going to walk out in their hazmat suits, hand her a bag with 2 very dangerous drugs and a few quick instructions, and then bring out their money machine, right? Because we're not doing this for free, my friends. Here's my $600 right here. And then leave. And they're calling it do-it-yourself abortion. And what's happening is our young women are being devastated. They're having they're basically passing their babies. The first drug that they're given blocks progesterone, so the baby basically starves or suffocates to death. And then she takes the second drug 24 to 72 hours later, and then that sends her into labor, and she expels what should be now her dead child. The miracle of abortion pill reversal is that if we can get to that girl in that short window, and it's a short window, and she'll call our hotline, what we can do, a physician will prescribe her progesterone, and we will just pound her body with the progesterone that the drug she took first blocked. Does that make sense? I like medical things to be simple. The doctors in here are going, oh, Pam, that's how I do it. I have to be simple. You've taken a drug to block progesterone. Now we're going to give you another drug to flood your body with progesterone. And many times, over 5,000 times, we have seen babies survive and live. I held baby twin little boys in my arms whose mother had taken the first pill at Planned Parenthood right next door to my clinic in Sarasota. She got progesterone back on board within 24 hours, and her twin boys survived and lived, and it was a precious, precious thing. If she doesn't do abortion pill reversal, she's told to take the second drug, which will cause her to go into labor, and she will now deliver her child, most of them in their home, in their dorms, in their apartments. And when these poor women see, because now they're going to see, you could talk to her all day and tell her it was a clump of cells and it's just nothing. But when she sees on her bed sheets and her shower floor and her toilet the reality of what she just did, she is devastated. I had a young co-ed from University of Florida walk into my clinic in Gainesville. She was visibly shaking. She was holding a little Tupperware. My nurses got her back into the counseling room. And she said, I was told that it was a clump of cells. I was told I would just pass. It would be like having a painful period. She went into the shower. She was hemorrhaging terribly. She went into the shower, and her little 10-week baby was passed into the shower and clogged her drain. She had to pull that little baby out of her drain, and when she did and looked down and saw the little hands and arms and feet, and she lost it. And she didn't know what else to do, so she said, I put it in this Tupperware, and I didn't know where else to come but to you. I couldn't bear to flush that baby down the toilet. The abortionist told her to flush it down the toilet. It's devastating. And think about this for just a minute. Chemical abortion now accounts for 60% of the abortions done in this country. And where are all those babies going? Going into your sewer system. They're going into your water system by the thousands. Thousands upon thousands. And not only is that happening, but we're devastating an entire generation of young women. The Hope Center needs to be there to reach out to women, hopefully before they do something horribly horrific like this. But we certainly need to be there after, to love them, to walk alongside them, to offer help and healing. Because I believe if a woman will get healing from having made a decision to abort her child sooner, we can avoid her doing it again, and the next one, and the next one. And that's why we need to be reaching out to them sooner. Parenting is obviously an option a young girl has. I'm so proud of the Hope Center and all they're doing to support parents, to support fathers. Thank you for being willing, Hope Center, to call out a generation of young men and tell them to step up to the plate and be the dads that God's called them to be. And to remind our young men that they have a voice because the feminists have said to them, no uterus, no voice. And I tell boys all the time, you have a voice and you need to use it. That is your child too. You matter in this equation. And if they keep beating you up that you don't have a say because you're a man, just identify as a woman and keep talking. No more of this silliness. All right, we need our young men. So thank you, Hope Center, for reaching out to fathers. And do you see what we're doing here? We're saving lives But we're coming alongside families. You got to see it, did you? Now the boy is 16 after she came here to Hope Center years ago. We are literally impacting generations. Do you feel that? We're literally changing lives and building families and impacting generations. 40 years, Hope Center, 40 years. Do you realize that some of the babies that lives were saved 40 years ago are now parents, and some of them even may shortly become grandparents? See generations that are helped and healed. It's amazing. Third option a young girl has if she finds herself pregnant, didn't intend to be, which I happen to think is the best option available to young women today. But it's not without pain. It's adoption. The ability of a young girl to take the child she's carried with her for 9 months and loves with everything she is, to say, I want what's best for my child, and I'm not it. And I am willing to go through all of this pain in order to give my child a family. It takes a lot of courage, a lot of maturity, and a lot of love. That is not easy. 1.5 million requests for adoption will go unanswered this year. 1.5 million couples in our country who would love to be parents before Christmas who will not be. The average adoption of an infant in the United States now takes between 6 and 8 years and costs between $40 and $70 to $100,000 because we have no infants available. Do you understand that? 98% of women in unplanned pregnancy who carry their children to term, not the ones who had abortions, 98% who carry their children to term will parent. 2% will place. And with the amount of infertility going on, adopting an infant in this country is almost impossible. That's why many couples dealing with infertility, wanting to be parents, are going overseas, adopting in foreign countries. The problem is no matter what Angelina Jolie and the Hollywood makes it look like, it's not that easy to run to Africa, Russia, China, pick up a child. Right now, they make you go to that country, spend time in that country, bring baby back, and a lot of times they're not infants, they're older children as well. Foster care is not adoption. You all understand the difference? I'm so tired of having to talk about it. I met a woman here in Indiana about a decade ago. Senator Murdoch was running for Senate at the time, and he made a comment that children that were conceived in rape were planned by God, and the pro-aborts came running in and said, Murdoch said that God plans rape, and there's all kinds of craziness going on. So I flew in to do a press conference, and I met a young woman by the name of Monica Kelsey. And that's the first I ever met her. We began to talk, and she shared her story about being conceived in rape and abandoned as an infant. And she said, Pam, I really want to start speaking about this. And my typical response to people is, don't quit your day job. If you're good at it, you can keep doing it, right? But Monica was persistent. I loved her anyway. She was persistent. I was going to South Africa. I said, Monica, I'm taking a trip, 2 weeks speaking in South Africa. If you can pay for your flight, you can come with me. And I took her with me to South Africa. And the very last church we were speaking on, we walked in and there was what looked like a bank deposit box in the side of that church. And the pastor said we'd had so many babies abandoned around our church. And as a pastor, he said, I just couldn't do that anymore. And I built this device so that a mom, before she just abandoned her child, could open that, 911 would be called. She could place her baby in that safe place, and we would be there to retrieve it. The last baby that they saved in that box, one of the couples at the church adopted him, and they named him Moses. And Monica was in awe. She goes, does this really work? And he said, yeah, it really works. And on a Delta napkin flying from Cape Town, South Africa, back to the U.S., Monica Kelsey drew the plans for Safe Haven baby boxes on a napkin. I was her first board member. She had 2, her husband and me. I operate that hotline and get to speak to women in crisis and help them see that there's a better way, there's something better than a dumpster, and that there's love at the other end of that box. And that even though this isn't the same as an adoption plan, it is in fact an adoption plan. You're just doing it anonymously, and that a family will be able to adopt that child. Every time we have a baby surrendered in one of our boxes, I get about hundreds of calls on the hotline. I want to adopt the baby. And again, get in line. I have 400 couples for every baby that becomes available through Safe Haven Surrender waiting for that baby. Adoption is an amazing gift, and it's selfless love. 59 years ago, a young 15-year-old became pregnant. She had a lot of difficult choices to make. Maybe more so than some teen girls, she was raped. But this 15-year-old girl chose to give her child life and then to place that child with an adoptive family. And that child was me. My biological father is a rapist. I don't even know my ethnicity. But I am still a human being. And I still have value. And I do not believe that my life is worth less than yours just because of the way I was conceived. And I don't believe that I deserve the death penalty for the crime of my biological father. And I've listened to the rhetoric my whole life, right? My whole life I've listened to people say every child should be wanted and planned. I've heard this said in the church. Well, I wouldn't have an abortion, that's horrible, I wouldn't kill my child. But if it were rape, you're a mistake, Pam. I don't believe that. I believe that every child is wanted by someone. And I believe that God in his mercy had a plan for me. And I can't explain that to you, and you can't me, don't try. I was every Bible professor's worst nightmare in college. You want to talk about the sovereignty of God and free will of man? Be careful, I have a question. Did God plan me? I memorized a verse in Awana when I was little that went like this. I knew you before the foundations of the world, formed you in your mother's womb. Did that mean me, or did that just mean you? Did God look down that night in November of 1964 and say, oops, what am I going to do, this huge mistake right here? I don't know. Don't know all the answers. Let me tell you what I know tonight. I know that my God is so awesome and so amazing that he is capable of taking your worst pain, whether it was something you chose or whether it was something that was done to you. And my God can make something very, very beautiful come from that. That is amazing grace. That is redemption. I have not met my birth mom. Someday I hope to. She's my hero. If I don't meet her here on earth, I'm gonna meet her in heaven. I've been praying for her since I was 4 years old. And one day when we meet, I'm gonna wrap my arms around her and I'm gonna tell her I love her because she loved me. Loved me enough to give me my life. And then she loved me enough to give me the next most special gift I was ever given, and that's my family. I'm the oldest of 8 children, 7 of us adopted. Every color of the rainbow in my family, we are the United Nations by ourselves. My brother, just younger than me, is the bio child, the real one. My parents tried to get pregnant for 7 years. Mom couldn't get pregnant. They adopted me, and 3 weeks later, Mom found out she was pregnant, had my brother. And then never again, so adopted 6 more. So he's my buddy. We're 14 months apart. He's my close friend. On his birthday, I sent him a card. Years ago, it was the funnest card. I found this in the store. I did not make this card. It was the best ever. It said, "Dear brother, on your birthday, I just wanted to remind you." And you open it up, it says, "I was planned, you were an accident." We tease each other a lot in my family. But I know that my family was a gift from a very scared 15-year-old girl. And as you listen to the political discussions going on now, which breaks my heart because not just the other side, the pro-life community has thrown children like me under the bus for decades. I want you to hear something. Abortion, in the case of rape, kills an innocent child. Want to argue with me about that? Abortion is the intentional killing of an innocent human person every time. Abortion in the case of rape kills an innocent child, damages the woman. Anybody want to disagree with that with me? Abortion help her? Abortion fix it? Abortion make the rape go away? Did it do any of those things? No. You've killed an innocent child. You've damaged the woman. You have helped someone. Someone wins in this scenario. You know who it is? The rapist, the perpetrator, the trafficker wins every single time. What I call this is misplaced compassion. You think in somewhere in your brain that you're having compassion for her. You're not. You're having compassion for the perpetrator. I have spent my life walking alongside women in crisis pregnancies because I believe with all my heart that what my mother needed in that horrible moment of trauma was not to have me violently ripped from her womb, to repay violence with more violence. What she needed was someone to love her. What she needed was someone to come alongside her. What she needed was someone to say, we will not abandon you. We will stay with you in this journey. We will be by your side. People, that is what the Hope Center does every single day. Every single day. They reach out to women in trauma, in crisis, in pain, and they say, you know what? We love you, and we'll walk alongside you, and we're gonna be here for you, and whatever you choose, we're gonna love you, we're gonna show you Jesus. Do you see what a gospel ministry this is? I think some people see this as, if you see it as political, you're crazy. It's not a political deal. And if you see this as some nice social work thing, you're wrong again. What this is us being able to be the hands and feet of Jesus to women in crisis. And let me tell you something, Pastor. That girl in the middle of that crisis is not going to necessarily walk into your church. But she will come to the Hope Center. And there she will be loved. And there she will be embraced. And there she will be supported so that we can then, pastors, hand her back to you. And her baby, maybe the father, and you can then take and disciple her. Do you see this? If the Hope Center cannot continue to operate, shame on the Church of Jesus Christ in Fort Wayne. This is a ministry of the gospel, bringing hope and help to women who are hurting. And we're not waiting for them to walk into the doors of our churches. We are going to her. And we're going to her on her phones. We're going to her via text. We're going to her every place that she is, and then eventually, hopefully, bringing her in, and then doing all of the amazing work that's being done here. We need you to be a part. We need your money. This takes money, and I gotta tell you, it is really tough right now to reach girls before the other side reaches them. It is tough, and it takes funds to do it. It takes funds to operate a text 24/7, to have nurses available to young women in the Fort Wayne community 24/7 on their phones at 2 o'clock in the morning, at midnight, at 10 at night when she's searching. It takes money. And then it takes the love of the staff. Pray for them. Pray that they're prayed up before they walk into that center every day. Bringing hope and love and truth to hurting women. It takes an army of volunteers. I'm so grateful to all of you who have walked alongside, who've mentored, who've come alongside women and the fathers. Guys, young men, we need you to come and just mentor one of these dads. Come alongside and go through their classes with them, walk with them. It takes an army of volunteers. So tonight, I don't know what God's calling you to do, but I'm sure he's calling you to do something, and we're gonna ask you to be involved, to make a difference, to do what it is that God's called you to do, and to be faithful at doing that. Whether it's giving, whether it's time, whether it's treasure, we need all of you to be involved. I've been doing this a very long time. You heard VHS tapes. I'm old, I'm a grandma, we all get it. I've been at this a very long time, and I look over and I see people. Hope Center's been here for 40 years, and there are some of you who were there 40 years ago. We've been fighting this battle for truth and for gospel and to reach out to women for a very long time. And it's really easy when you've been in the battle a really long time to get discouraged, to start to think that you can't make a difference. When you hear the big numbers, you say, the problem is so big and I'm only one person. But you know what? God didn't tell you to fix the problem. He told you to do what he's called you to do. He's looking at you today and say, this is what I need you to do. And I want you to hear his voice, and I want you to answer it, because you know what? Someday when my grandchildren, when we see abortion end in this nation, end, not restricted, end. And my grandchildren someday look up at me and say, Grandma, were you around when they were killing babies? Yes, I was. What did you do? What did you say? Who did you help? I want to be honest with them. And maybe more importantly, I want to be honest with my Savior. One of my favorite quotes from Mother Teresa of Calcutta, and I've carried it with me my whole ministry. Mother Teresa said this: God did not call us to be successful. He called us to be faithful. And so until he comes again, Maranatha, he could come tonight, I'm ready. Or until he takes me home, my only hope is to one day run into the arms of my Savior and hear these words: well done, thou good and faithful servant. Let us commit to be faithful to the call, be faithful to the Hope Center, pray for this ministry, give time and treasure, because lives are at stake, families are at stake, generations are at stake, not just physical life, but eternal life. And that's what we want to be about, is it not? So we're going to come and they're going to officially tell you how to give. I'm just going to beg you to do that. And I would really pray, Fort Wayne, that you would give generously tonight to make sure that the Hope Center continue the missions God's called them to. God bless you.
Pam, thank you so much for boldly speaking the truth that we need to hear. As Pam has encouraged us to do tonight, we're asking you to support a Hope Center, literally saving hundreds of lives every year. They cannot do the work without our help and our support, and as Pam said, our funds. So tonight on your table, there is a large purple envelope, and inside of that are a bunch of smaller envelopes. And right now, we'd like to give you a minute to take those out and pass them around the table. And if you're prepared to give tonight, I would encourage you to fill this out and give it tonight, whatever you've come prepared to give. If you're not prepared to give, I would encourage you to take this home and to pray about it. Use this envelope as a reminder to continue to pray for a Hope Center, and maybe one day fill it and send it back in. But if you can give tonight, I'm gonna give you a moment here to fill it out and then pass it back and collect them into those large purple envelopes. And then if you're the table host, if you will find a member of the Hope Center staff and deliver your table's envelopes to them here in just a moment, we would greatly appreciate it. But right now, I think Keegan is gonna play just a little, and I'm gonna give you a moment to fill out the envelopes. Again, once you've filled out those envelopes, pass them back to your table host, collect them all together, and table host, if you will please get those to a staff member from a Hope Center. A couple of housekeeping things here on our way out. Each table has a lucky winner of the flowers at the center of your table. If you sat at the place with a flower bag under your plate, we invite you to take the flowers from the centerpiece. Do not take the vase. The flower bag is for you to take the flowers out in. So don't take the vase, just take the flowers in your bag. Also, a reminder that on your way out at the back of the room, there are tables where you can learn about classes and offerings that a Hope Center is bringing to our community. We encourage you to stop by those tables and learn more about what a Hope Center does every day and what they've done for over 40 years. As we leave, Keegan's going to continue to play. We invite you to stay and socialize and continue to fill out envelopes and learn more about a Hope Center. A reminder to board members that you are to take these live plants from the stage on your way out. We thank you all for coming tonight and supporting this mission that has been critical for decades, but has never been more important than it is right now in this world we live in. Thank you for coming tonight. Please pray for a Hope Center. Thank you for supporting, and have a great night.